Heinrich. I'm trying to learn histology, today tissue repair, and after we've done that, we're going to do stretching. And if you participate in the stretching, it's with your own risk, and we're talking about internal anatomy. Now, tissue repair, this is not part of the first part. Now, the first which we have here is, in adults, each of the 4 basic tissue types, epithelial, connective, muscle, and nervous, has a different capacity of replenishing parenchymal cells lost by damage, disease, or other processes. And I want to have a video where I have this information what these 4 basic types of tissues are. So these 4. In adults, each of the 4 basic tissue types, we're going to call it, the 4 basic tissue types are epithelial, connective, muscle, and nerves. Nervous tissue, muscle tissue, connective tissue, and epithelial tissue. Epithelial cells, how we mentioned them like that here. Connective tissue, muscle tissue, and the last one is the nervous tissue. Nervous tissue. So the first one is called epithelial cells. We're going to mention them like that. Epithelial, the 4 basic types of tissue in humans are the epithelial cells, the connective tissue, the muscle tissue, and the nervous tissue. According to Gerard, Tutora, and Sender? 133. Sender. Gerard and Sender, 133. Book. I should that, but repeat. Principles of Anatomy and Physiology. And it was the epithelial cells, the connective tissue, the muscle tissue, and the nervous tissue. I'm going to stop a second here, right? And let's try to see that. The 4 basic types of tissue in humans are the epithelial cells, epithelial cells and the connective. What is the tissue? The 4 basic tissue types. The 4 basic tissue types in humans are the epithelial cells, the connective tissue, the muscle tissue, and the nervous tissue. That's according to Gerard Tutora and Sandra Karbowski's Principles of Anatomy and Physiology book, page 133. Comes the camera. And now let's go on. We want to say now, maybe if every time, to say what is going on here. The epithelial cells, which endure considerable wear and tear, in some locations, have a continuous capacity for renewal. In some cases, immature, undifferentiated cells called stem cells divide to replace lost or damaged cells. For example, stem cells reside in protected locations in the epithelia of the skin and gastrointestinal tract to replenish cells slaughtered from the apical surface, and stem cells in red bone marrow continually provide new red and white blood cells and platelets. In other cases, mature differentiated cells can undergo cell division. Examples are hepatocytes in liver cells and endothelial cells in blood vessels. So when we're mentioning them as well, basically as cells, but not so much as tissue, but in a way also. But it is for 4 basic. There seems to be then also the hepatocytes in the liver and the endothelial cells in the blood vessels. Okay, the epithelial cells, they have a continuous capacity for renewal. Let's go on and look then, if you maybe say something how it works. Some connective tissues also have a continuous capacity for renewal. One example is bone, which has an ample blood supply. I don't know what ample means. Other connective tissues, such as cartilage or fibrous connective tissue, can replenish cells less readily, and partly because of, okay, when we're saying, and the connective tissue has a, and some of the connective tissue have also a continuous capacity for renewal. The bone tissue, the bone marrow, the bone, for example, and the cartilage, the bone, cartilage, the fibrous connective tissue. Let's just say bone cartilage can be renewed, but the cartilage, because of the smaller blood supply, less fast, less readily. I don't know, is this the difference, readily and fast? I don't see a difference right now. Less readily. Muscle tissue has a relatively poor capacity for renewal. Again, the muscle tissue, relatively poor capacity for renewal. Existing cardiac muscle fibers cannot divide to form new fibers, even though skeletal muscle tissues contain stem cells called satellite cells. They do not divide rapidly enough to replace extensively damaged fibers. Smooth muscle fibers proliferate to some extent, but they do so much more slowly than the cells of epithelial connective tissues. I think we're making a little mistake here now, what we're doing. I'm preparing right now a little video where I just rank these four with one explanation sentence. Maybe you should do first a video where we explain all four, and then go back and pick the four sentences out of it to the four. So we should stop preparing our ranking video and start to prepare our presentation about all four types. When you have more to say. Okay, how does it work? Muscle tissue has a relatively poor capacity for renewal of lost cells. Okay, it cannot do it so good. Existing cardiac muscle fibers cannot divide to form new fibers. Okay, the cardiac muscle fibers cannot divide and form new fibers. The skeletal muscles contains stem cells called satellite cells. They do not divide rapidly enough to replace extensively damaged fibers. Okay, the cardiac muscle in the heart, they cannot divide to form new fibers. The skeletal muscles, so all the bigger muscles like the biceps and so on, they have satellite cells to divide, but they are not rapidly enough to replace extensively damaged fibers. The smooth muscle cells, muscle fibers, proliferate to some extent, but they do so much more slowly than the cells of the field. The smooth muscles proliferate to some extent, well, no, it's the same, but I don't really know what it means. Proliferate to some extent, but not as good as the connective or the epithelial tissue. Nervous tissue has the poorest capacity for renewal. Although experiments have recently revealed the presence of some stem cells in the brain, they normally do not undergo mitosis to replace damaged neurons. And nervous tissue has the by far poorest capacity, but there are some indications that there are maybe stem cells of the brain which hypothetically could do mitosis. Discovering why this is so is a major goal of researchers seeking ways to encourage repair of damaged or diseased nervous tissue. Okay. In some cases, immature and undifferentiated cells called stem cell epithelial cells divide to replace lost or damaged cells. It is too early. That means we're going to come back for a proper video when we're going to prepare our video about all four types, and then we're going to do the ranking afterwards. But we have a little time for something else. The other thing on page 152. I just want to name these four phases. For the what are the four phases of deep wound healing? Inflammatory phase, migratory phase, granulation, proliferative phase, and the maturation phase. I'm going to do that as well then later on a video where we're going to explain the deep wound healing better. But for now, it will the inflammatory phase. So first the inflammatory phase, and then the migratory phase. Inflammatory phase and then the migratory phase. So inflammatory phase and then migratory phase and then the proliferative phase, and then the maturation phase. Okay, it is the inflammatory phase, the inflammatory phase and the migration phase and the proliferative phase and the maturation phase. inflammatory, migratory, proliferative, and maturation. I'm going to start by saying here. Four phases of deep wound healing. Inflammatory and then migratory, proliferative, and maturation. The four phases of deep wound healing are the inflammatory phase and the migratory phase and the proliferative phase and the maturation phase. And that is according to Gerard Dottora and Sylvia Grabowski's Principles of Anatomy and Physiology book, page 152. Now, I'm going to stop second round. And that was the histology part. If you were here for histology, you can go directly to the next part of histology. If you stay and participate in the stretching, then it's better the hours. Next standing shoulder before the part, breathe in the field. Breathe out, go to the side. You fill it up. Out over to the other side. In and up. And up, stop. Breathe again in. Out one hand slides down the leg. The arm shoulder stays down. Breathe in. Out one arm over. Breathe in, out with the cage. Out to the middle. Again in. Out one hand slides down the leg. Shoulder stays down. Again in. Out one arm over. Breathe in, out with the cage. And out into the middle. Have feet standing together, the elbow, the elbow, the airplane within the arms. Push out one hand down. Within reach. Hold it up. Again in. Out and down. And reach. Hold it up. And down. Now if an extended shoulder before the part again. Breathe in and with our shoulder circles go back. Up. Front and down. Keep on breathing. Back. Up. Front and down. And backwards. Front. Back. Down. Again front. Up. Back. And down. Now breathe in the shoulder. Breathe out, let it fall down. In and up. Out and down. In and up. Out and down. In and the arms up. And now the apple plucker. Pretend to reach high, to take an apple hanging high on an apple branch, to turn it a bit around and bend it back. And now we shift our arms up to T-legs for the part breathe in. And out, shift over just as the upper part of our body to one side. Again, in and the middle. Out the other side. Again in. And again in. Out. And out, lean onto the knees. Breathe in. And out, one shoulder in front. The buffalo fighting its hangover. Again in. Back and out the other by the front. Out. Out. Breathe in. And hanging down, and we're doing the Niagara Falls. Just keep hanging down. Breathe in. And out. Again in. And out over the right leg. Breathe in. And out over the other one. Again in. And out into the middle. Breathe in. And now come slowly back around, back up, make it on the backwards, shoulder roll. Have legs that stand wide apart, breathe in, out. And breathe out. Okay. And out. In. And out. In. And out. Breathe in, close the legs. And breathe again out. It was the stretching. Thank you very much, and until next time.